Representative Russell Ott of House District 93, Orangeburg, and Calhoun counties is now a Democratic candidate for State Senate District 26, which covers portions of Lexington, Calhoun, and Richland counties. He tells me why he's running for the State Senate for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. State Representative Russell Ott, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you for having me, Quintin.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, as I just mentioned, you are a state representative for House District 93, Calhoun, Lexington, and Orangeburg counties, and have been the representative of those counties since 2013. Now, you are a candidate for State Senate District 26, which includes portions of Calhoun, Lexington, and Richland counties. You all obviously will face Democratic State Senator Dick Harpootlian for that seat in the June Democratic primary on June 11th. And I know I should mention this too, but current Representative of the District, Senator Nikki Setzler, announced earlier this year that he would actually retire from that particular seat. So tell me, Senator Ott, why the state senator? Why now?
Yeah, man. I just think it's a great opportunity, Quintin. You hit the nail on the head. When Senator Nikki Setzler announced that he was going to retire, I certainly decided that, I felt like Senate District 26 needed to continue to have a strong senator, someone that was going to work hard for all of the portions of the district. It's a very different district than what it has been previously. It's a very unique district, Quintin. It's exactly what you laid out. I mean, it's about half of Calhoun County. It's portions of lower Lexington County, and as well as the eastern parts of Lexington County. It runs up the I-26 corridor, takes in KC and West Columbia,
Sure.
Goes all the way up to Harbison Boulevard. And then it goes over into downtown Columbia in Richland County and takes in neighborhoods like Earlwood, Elmwood, Cottontown. It splits 5 points. So it's very, very unique. I mean, it's got very rural parts. A lot of agriculture. I tell people it's got everything from cornfields to high rises. And so I think it just, I think it's going to take someone who is shown a history of working hard and building bridges to help everyone in the district, not just certain portions of it. So, Senator Setzler did a fantastic job with Senate District 26, and I just want to follow in those footsteps. I just want to continue the work that he's done. And just work hard and try to make sure that everyone knows that they've got someone that's going to represent them in the Senate with honesty and integrity and a very strong work ethic.
Before, obviously, Senator Setzler was set to retire and actually occupy that seat as state senator, what parts of that particular district parts of District 26, I should say, were not represented in totality?
No, I think he's done a good job. But like I said, now the district has changed greatly because of redistricting.
Right.
And I think that's what everyone needs to understand. Previously Senate District 26 had portions of Aiken and Saluda County in it as well. Senator Harpootlian had made it very clear early on that he was not going to run for re-election. And so they chose to take his Senate district, which was Senate District 20, and they moved it down to Charleston to create a new Senate district down there to encompass the population growth that obviously that area has been seeing. And he supported that plan. He was in the newspaper supporting moving Senate District 20 out of Richland County. And so then, obviously with the shift and the redrawing of the lines, after Senator Setzler announced his retirement, Senator Harpootlian said that he had changed his mind and was going to end up running for the district after all. And so, again, it's about continuing with what Senator Setzler did. It's not necessarily that there were portions of the district that were left out. I want to continue to make sure that all of the portions of the district have good, strong representation with honesty and integrity.
What issues do you want to build bridges with when it comes to District 26?
Yeah, I can tell you, Quintin, top of my priority list will always be public education. I just have told people continuously that I believe a lot of the problems that our state faces, whether it's, incarceration rates, poor health outcomes, unemployment levels, any problem that we deal with, we can help solve by doing better when it comes to public education. So, I've been an outspoken leader and advocate for public schools across our state. I think that we can do better, and we have to do better. There are just simply too many disparities that we see amongst our public schools across the state of South Carolina. The last thing that we need to be doing is what we've been doing recently in the General Assembly, which is taking public dollars out of our public schools and then sending them to private schools in the forms of vouchers. I mean, I have spoken out adamantly against that plan, and I'm going to tell you, man, it's just going to have harmful impacts long term for our public schools. Our teachers, we have a bad problem right now with teacher morale. And I think that that's showing itself in our teacher vacancies across the state. So we've got too many kids in classrooms. We've got to reverse that trend. And we're not going to do that by taking funding away from our public schools and sending it to private schools. I've got nothing wrong with private schools. But they get their autonomy because they are private, because they don't receive funding from the state. And so, we just had battle after battle after battle. And what I've said is, for all of these folks that say that the private schools offer a better education, well, let's make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. But what the advocates of these voucher schemes are pushing forward is not an apples to apples comparison. So they're not putting the requirements and the regulations upon the private schools that we heap upon our public schools. So I'm going to continue to fight against that. I just believe that we have to do better. We've taken some steps in years past to increase teacher pay, and that's fantastic. But at the end of the day, we're only keeping pace. We're not getting ahead of our neighboring states with the amount of money that they pay their teachers. We're just keeping pace. We still lag far behind them. And so we just got to continue to do better. Healthcare is a big deal, Quintin. I've been an outspoken advocate for Medicaid expansion. We should have done that 10 years ago. We allowed folks to not allow us to do that. Nikki Haley was pretty outspoken as to blocking, that Medicaid expansion. And it's just a shame. I mean, we've got our folks paying taxes across the state, sending it to Washington, D.C., and then they're sending that money to different states that have accepted that federal money to expand Medicaid, and we aren't. And the people that's truly hurting are those working adults that are caught in the middle, where they make too much money working two jobs a lot of times to be eligible for Medicaid, or they don't have a family yet, but yet they don't make enough money to have their own private health care. And so, they a lot of times are going without. And then when they get sick, they end up going to our emergency rooms for the care that they need, which leads to unacceptable wait times in a lot of our emergency rooms. And there's no preventative maintenance. So, I'm going to continue to fight for that. And I actually believe that we are making grounds on that front. And I look forward to next year being able to lead that fight to expand Medicaid in South Carolina.
And I want to get back to that in a second. But you mentioned obviously about the need for public education right now. You mentioned the incarceration rate. So what has that been in the past 4 years in District 26?
Yeah, I don't know the exact incarceration rate, Quintin, but there's a lot of folks out there, number one, that are searching for better job opportunities. Now, we have done a good job on attracting industry to certain parts of the South Carolina, but not all. And what I want to do is be an advocate for bringing these types of high-paying jobs to all parts of South Carolina. That starts with doing things like building upon our infrastructure system. We've got to increase, the water and sewer capacity in some of our rural areas. We've got to continue to make sure broadband exists all across the state, so that we can make sure that folks, are able to go and get a good, high-paying job, to make sure that our kids, have a bright future, that they don't have to go other places, and that they don't fall into the trap of being influenced by those people that would like to take advantage of them a lot of time. And so, I just believe, again, going back to what I said earlier, is that public education is the key to solving a lot of the problems that our state faces.
How should the state of South Carolina make obviously internet a utility?
What's that now?
How should the state of South Carolina make the internet or broadband a utility?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something that we have had discussions around. Right now, our internet and our electricity, a lot of times falls to the Office of Regulatory Staff, and then those rates go on to the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission makes a lot of those decisions. But at the end of the day, what I just want to make sure of is that we are bringing those services to all parts of South Carolina. And, we've done a good job of that. I'm very thankful for our electric cooperatives across the state that have been building out that broadband opportunity for a lot of folks that have never really had it. And so that's a great thing. I think that's one of, the COVID pandemic obviously was very hard on a lot of people. But if you're looking for some positives, that was certainly one of the positives, that we were able to identify the fact that we were lagging far behind when it comes to that connectivity, the internet connectivity across the state of South Carolina. And we were able to leverage a lot of federal funds that came down from that COVID pandemic to make sure that a lot of our underserved areas were able to tap into that opportunity.
Now, how many federal funds are left to provide broadband services to those areas that need it right now?
Yeah, there's still some out there. There's still some out there, and there's still a lot of projects that are currently in the works and being built out right now. And so we've got to make sure that that's not going to last forever. And so what we've got to make sure, and that goes back to, again, of having a serious legislator in Senate District 26 that's going to be there first and foremost, going to show up and do the job, and not go and do other things. But at the end of the day, it's going to take someone serious to get in there and craft budgets and make sure that we are maximizing everything that we can do with the taxpayers' money, to make sure that we provide those types of services all across the state.
You mentioned infrastructure. So how many infrastructure projects are in the works right now for District 26?
Yeah, we've got a lot along I-26. It's certainly growing. We need some additional sewer capacity in the lower part, in Calhoun County for sure. And that will just open up so many different opportunities. The Scout project, on upper side of Columbia is going to be huge. It's not in Senate District 26, but the spinoff economic development from that project is going to be very beneficial to Senate District 26 as far as putting people to work, and then just creating opportunities for entrepreneurs in Senate District 26 that want to be able to provide the different types of services and parts and maintenance, you name it, that huge project is going to bring to our area.
Now, how much money is available in the budget for this particular project?
For the Scout project?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we had a big economic package that was voted upon last year, not in this current budget.
Okay.
So that project is moving forward. They have already broken ground there and are doing the work to get it up and running. At the same time, I want to make sure that we have someone that will continue to work with Scout and make sure that we are putting South Carolinians to work, and providing those job opportunities for our local folks that live here. And that's something that I think we're going to have to keep a close eye on and make sure that those opportunities are available to everyone, Quintin. And that's something that I've worked very hard on, is to make sure that, that everyone has those opportunities to go and get those good jobs, and that these companies that are coming into our great state aren't too singularly focused on certain individuals or certain groups. We want to make sure that those opportunities are afforded to everyone.
So how many in-demand jobs are there right now in District 26?
There's a lot, and I think that's not necessarily specific to just Senate District 26. That is what, I think we're seeing across the state, is that there are a lot of employers that are looking for employees. The job market out there for folks is pretty strong. And that's one of the reasons, I was very proud that House Speaker Merle Smith chose me to be on one of his special committees. And last year we worked very hard on making sure that we were streamlining these different agencies across the state of South Carolina that were trying to put people to work. We've got a lot of, we've got the Department of Employment and Workforce. And then we've got a lot of, sites or agencies or entities that were trying basically to do the exact same thing. And so there was a lot of overlap. There was a lot of, the same different people trying to accomplish the same goals. So we work to try to put all of those different entities under one umbrella, so that when someone is out there unemployed and looking for a job, that it's not overly burdensome for them to know exactly where they need to go to find out what opportunities are available to them in the areas that they live. But I'll tell you this, Quintin, one of the biggest hurdles that we identified that are holding a lot of folks back from going and getting these jobs is two things. Number one is transportation, and the second is childcare. We have got to get serious about figuring out this childcare situation. We've got so many folks that simply don't have anywhere for their kids to go while they're at work. And we've got to try to figure out that problem for the state of South Carolina. We've got to incentivize, different folks. We've got to think outside of the box and work with our different employers and urge them and incentivize them to provide that type of child care for these working parents across the state of South Carolina. So it's something that we have to continue to focus on. And then we've got to be able, not everyone owns a vehicle, Quintin. Not everyone owns a car. And, we've got to figure out a way to get folks from these rural areas and try to get them to where these high paying jobs are.
So, what projects can be streamlined right now to help with those situations right now, and especially in the rural areas?
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier, is just trying to make sure that we give the resources and that we put, one entity, one agency in charge of making sure that everything runs through them. And that is certainly with the Department of Employment and Workforce, and but there's a lot of different groups out there, economic development groups, that have been doing exactly that. We've got, the Council of Governments across the state, the COGS that I know that you're familiar with. They've got work ready one-stop shops that they have been working on a lot of times. But then, like I said, it can become very confusing for folks to figure out where should I really go. And so that's what we've tried to streamline, to make sure that the work that the COGS are doing, along with all of these different agencies and entities that are serving a great purpose. We just want to make sure that everyone is working together to the greatest extent possible.
Now, how many of those one-stop shops do you need right now in the rural areas?
We just need to make sure that we just need to make sure that they are available to everyone. And again, that goes back to that connectivity that we were talking about. We've got to make sure that whether it's in St. Matthews or Swansea, smaller towns, that there's a place people can go. And if they don't have, that connectivity, most everyone has a phone now. And so, there's a lot of work that people can do individually on their phones, but we want to make sure that, we're putting it out there to the public that if you are in search of a job, if you're currently unemployed in the state of South Carolina right now, we want to make sure that you understand that these are the places that you need to go to find the opportunities that are out there for you. And then, we just want to make sure that it works, right? I talk to so many people, and that's one of the greatest things about this campaign, Quintin, is you get to meet so many wonderful people that you might not otherwise be able to meet. But, so many people get frustrated, I think, a lot of times with state government, because either they're looking for a job, or they're trying to get benefits, or they're trying to figure out, am I eligible for Medicaid? All of these different services that we provide, when people are going to try to find out what is available to them, a lot of times they meet a lot of roadblocks. And that, becomes a concern, obviously, and a frustration that a lot of people have to deal with. We have got to make sure that we are investing in our state agencies to make sure that when people are trying to go get information, or trying to find help, or trying to find work, that they are talking to someone that can lay out that process very clearly and concisely to them. Whether it's a DMV when you're trying to go get a driver's license, whether it's at Department of Health and Human Services when you're trying to get on Medicaid, you name it. All of these state agencies are, they serve such vital, important roles in our community. We've got to make sure, though, that at the end of the day, when people go to them, that they're getting the help that they need. That's not always the case right now.
Well, let me ask you this a better way then. What public-private partnerships would you be in favor for as far as actually expediting all of this process and the resources?
Yeah, I think we always have to take a look at our public-private opportunities as they come. Again, going back, I really think that there's opportunities for public-private partnerships when it comes to childcare. I really, we have looked across the country, and you see some states that are implementing programs that are incentivizing these companies to provide childcare to their employees, and I think that's a great thing. So I see that as a huge opportunity. But what I just want to make sure first and foremost is that we stay focused on those things that we are able to control, which is our state agencies right out of the gate. We've got to, before we can go and worry about what, public-private opportunities exist, I just want to make sure that our state agencies are running as efficiently as they possibly can run. And again, that just takes hard work. I'm proud to serve on the House Oversight Committee, and I've done that now for I think the last 2 or 3 years, and that has just been so eye-opening to me, Quintin, to see these different state agencies that exist in the state of South Carolina when they come in and then explain to us, the roles that they play in society, the work that they do. Sometimes things are great. Other times that we are able to identify inefficiencies that exist that we need to work on. And that just is a constant, that's something that is continuously going on, is to try to find those inefficiencies and do away with them and make sure that we are working as efficiently as we possibly can as state government.
Do you all have enough money to get rid of some of these inefficiencies or actually deal with them?
Yeah, well, when you get rid of inefficiencies, you actually are able to save money, and so then that revenue, either number one, can go back to the taxpayers, or number two, it can be used for other vital, important aspects. And and again, it's going back to like public education. I believe wholeheartedly that we have inequities across our state. We've got some school districts that are doing a very great job, and most times that's your more affluent districts, right? That have the money to be able to go out and attract the best school teachers to those districts and to those schools. Well, all school districts should be able to attract teachers. We should, as a state, be attracting more people to go into the field of education. But we have not done a good job in making sure that public education is a priority in our state. And so now we're, unfortunately seeing the impacts of that, where teachers are leaving the classroom. We have students that are graduating from high school, and instead of going into the field of education to get certified, to get a college degree, to go on and be our teachers, they understand, well, I can go and make a lot more money in other fields. And that's what they're doing. And it is getting to an extremely critical stage. And I just want people to understand, for a lot of these folks that are pushing these voucher schemes on us here in the state of South Carolina, they're not doing it just because, they truly believe in this format. They're doing it because it's very lucrative for them. And we've seen that in other states across the country, where this investment of state funds goes straight into the pockets of some of these different, pop-up entities. And so you see schools come in, they throw up shop, kids go there. Next thing you know, they're closing and they're moving on. Well, they've taken a lot of money when they move on. And so, again, one of the greatest things one of the biggest things that I think state government does is appropriate the money that we receive from taxpayers across the state. And we've got to make sure that we're doing a good job with what we are tasked with doing: public education, public safety, you name it, water and infrastructure. Those are very critical core government functions that we have to make sure that we're doing a good job. And sometimes what we do ends up kind of working against ourselves. And I think you can see that, Quintin, when you start talking about public safety. We've done a good job of increasing the pay for our highway patrol officers, SLED agents, those types of law enforcement officers that fall under the purview of the state. But then what that does is, unfortunately, a lot of our local departments, our sheriff's departments and our police departments aren't able to keep pace. And so a lot of times they then see their officers leave their local jurisdictions to go to state agencies, which is good because we have to fill those critical needs. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that our local governments are able to have the revenue that they need to keep and attract officers in those local jurisdictions.
Now, going back obviously to obviously those pop-up schemes, where exactly are those taking place in District 26?
Well, it's something brand new, Quintin. But what we've seen is that's happened all across the country. And I think it's very telling that, last year we've been fighting against this voucher scheme for quite some time. And we've been begging, the Republican Party to put that to the side and let's focus on fixing public education. And they've not done that. So last year you saw, for the first time ever, the General Assembly pass what was supposed to be, a pilot program for the vouchers, so that the most needy families would be able to access this amount of money and then use that to go to a private school. That was obviously litigated, and right now you're seeing that the South Carolina State Supreme Court is going to ultimately rule on whether it's constitutional or not. I don't believe that it is, because the Constitution is extremely clear that public dollars cannot be used to the benefit of private schools. And again, there's a lot of reasons for that. We talked about that earlier. But it was very telling to me that passed last year is being litigated in front of the state Supreme Court currently as we speak. And then just this year, right, folks brought back an even more expansive voucher bill that was passed in the South Carolina House of Representatives. It did not make it through the Senate, thankfully, but you'll continue to see that. And that was, again, it was touted last year as a pilot program. Let's see how it works. Well, before it even got put into place, there were folks that were already trying to expand it and take more money away from our public schools and put into this particular program. So it's not out there yet. This will be, the upcoming year will be the first year that folks have access to that voucher money. And I think that you'll see these types of these schools coming into areas all across the state, applying to be a private school so that they can get their hands on that voucher money. And like we've seen in places like Arizona and other states across the country that have tried this, it has had no impact on the quality of our kids' education. And a lot of times these folks come in, they grab the money, and then they're gone.
Now, how much money is it? How much public dollars are actually going towards these vouchers?
If I'm not mistaken, Quinn, it's like $3,000 that each individual family or each individual child will be able to apply for. But we're talking millions of dollars here. And like I said, it was the proposal this year was to greatly expand the amount of money that the state of South Carolina was going to put forward. And I just think it's unfortunate. I mean, at the end of the day, our public schools are always going to be here. They are always going to have to exist. They're going to always have to take whoever shows up to their doors at the beginning of each year. That's where we need to be putting our focus, is trying to make those public schools strong and good so that we can make sure that all of our kids have access to a great education. Not just those that are able to tap into this money or are fluent enough to be able to send their kids to a private school.
Now, once they expand this particular program, the vouchers program, how much more money will the state of South Carolina put towards that?
Untold. I mean, it was what we were looking at was over $1 billion. The proposal that we looked at this past year was over $1 billion. Ultimately, when it was fully implemented, would be going to this program to send out there to families that were and the eligibility was going to go away. So again, what we would see is families that are already sending their kids to private schools would ultimately just get subsidized for that cost. And so, I just don't think it's right for families that are already making that decision to send their kids to a private school. And again, it goes back to private schools exist because they don't take public funding, so they get the autonomy to do what they want to do. They have the autonomy to hire the teachers that they want to hire. They have the autonomy to teach what they want to teach because they don't accept those public dollars. And so I believe it's got to be one or the other. If you're going to take public dollars, then you have to fall under the purview of the state, or you continue to be private. You don't receive public funds, and you get to do what you want to do. But I don't think it's fair to our public schools to allow, one set of criteria for one set of schools and something completely different for another.
I wish I had more time to talk to you about that issue and more,
Me
but
too.
I have 2 minutes left. But let me talk to you about something that's been in and out of the courts, as you know, for a long time, and that is abortion. People in the state that I talk to ask us if a woman is forced to have a baby by the South Carolina legislator and dies in childbirth, is the state of South Carolina going to compensate her family for the value of her life?
Yeah, that's a great question, Quentin. And I think what you just bring up is that, the different scenarios that can exist under this extremely controversial issue. It's been very frustrating. This has been an issue that continues to come up in my campaign that my opponent is not telling the truth on. And at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that we protect women's health. And, I think that there's a lot of folks in the General Assembly right now that could care less. They're making political points. They're bringing up this issue over and over because it's such a political wedge. And it's unfortunately good for politics because it keeps so many people divided. We've got to make sure that we always allow for a woman to protect her health first and foremost. That has to come with the choice to be able to have an abortion. There's got, at the end of the day, I voted against this last bill that came before the General Assembly last year. I took to the floor and I advocated against it because we had just passed another bill that was deemed to be unconstitutional by the South Carolina State Supreme Court. And like that voucher program that you and I were just talking about, the General Assembly comes back then the very next year with an even more restrictive bill regulating and outlawing abortions in the state of South Carolina. They take the only female that we have on the South Carolina State Supreme Court, they replace her with another male, and then all of a sudden they find this abortion bill to be constitutional. 6 weeks, and it does not allow for exceptions for a woman's health. It only allows for exceptions when it comes to her life being in jeopardy. And that is simply not okay for the women of South Carolina.
But, State Representative, you talk about expanding women's health care, but obviously you voted with the Republicans 5 times, I believe, to basically take away women's basic right to control her body. So
Quentin, you sound like you've been listening to my opponent's talking points that he's been putting out and not telling the whole truth. I stand with women's health, and that's why I voted against the last abortion bill, Quentin. I want to be very clear about that, okay? And so, Dick certainly likes to bring up the fact that 5 times, Quentin, it was 2 bills. And the reason that, that I voted 3 years ago on that particular one was because I fought so hard to make sure that those exceptions existed when so many other people walked away from that debate. I fought very hard to make sure that exceptions for a woman's health, rape, incest were included in that legislation. Again, that legislation, that bill was found to be unconstitutional. And so then the very next year, Republicans came back with something that was even more restrictive than what had just passed. And that's why I fought against it and I voted against it. And Quentin, it's interesting that Dick brings this issue up over and over again. He wasn't even there for the debate on this abortion legislation. He had chosen to go down to Hampton County and to be a lawyer in the trial of someone that killed his wife. And so, I'm not going to sit here and let him try to dictate or tell folks, that I have not been a strong proponent for women's health across the state of South Carolina. I have. That's why I got a bill passed in the South Carolina General Assembly that would allow the Pharmacy Access Act that allows women to go straight to a pharmacy and get birth control rather than have to go and get a costly prescription from their doctor. And I think it's very telling why people like Planned Parenthood and the WREN network are not endorsing my opponent in this race, because they see how hard that I've worked over the course of the last 11 years, Quentin, to make sure that women's health is taken care of and protected. And I will continue to do that.
I have 2 minutes left. Should South Carolina lawmakers then have considered punishing abusers with involuntary vaccinities instead of punishing victims with involuntary pregnancies?
Yeah, absolutely. No. I mean, say that one more time. Make sure I heard the question.
Yeah, should lawmakers have considered punishing abusers with involuntary vaccinities instead of punishing victims with involuntary pregnancies?
Yeah, no. I mean, we have to make sure that we always punish those people that are harming women or attacking women. We've got to make sure that we do a good job of holding those people accountable. The woman should never be punished, Quentin. That is the bottom line. The woman should never be punished. A doctor should never be punished for doing what he or she feels like is in the best interest of their patient. And what you've seen is it's never going to be enough for a lot of these Republican lawmakers. They want this issue to continue. They want to keep it at the forefront because it's good for business for them. And so they will continue to push more extreme measures. And we've got to stand up and say enough is enough.
But if they want to reverse the vaccinity, should the woman then alert law enforcement?
Should the woman should alert law enforcement if she has been attacked? If there's, I don't think that there's any type of mandate. At the end of the day, I just want to go back, and the woman should not be held accountable for any of that. At the end of the day, we've got to make sure that that the woman feels protected and is safe and secure.
Now, let's say if abortion is legal, why does it have to be informed? Why does anybody have to be informed? That's what I'm trying to say.
Informed.
Yeah, if abortion is legal, why does anybody have to be informed?
I don't think that they do.
Should the physician name the victim and provide victim's health and personal information to law enforcement officials?
No, absolutely not.
When should a woman go to police? Just after rape or incest?
Yeah, I'm not going to tell a woman what she has to do or when she has to do it. That's the bottom line. And I think that those are private issues that if a woman goes to her doctor and says that she's been raped and the doctor, is able to understand that, then that should be, a woman should have access to whatever choice she ends up needing to make for herself at that particular point.
Do you support abortion restrictions that are similar to, say, Europe?
I'm not exactly sure what those restrictions are, Quintin. But like I said, I think that what we have on the books right now that I voted against is certainly too extreme for the women of South Carolina, and we need to do better. And I think that what we need to do at the end of the day, Quintin, is get folks into a room, people that truly want to try to come up with a solution to this issue that works for South Carolina, not allow these extreme folks on both sides of the issue to continue to dictate to the state of South Carolina what needs to be in place. That's what I look forward to being able to provide, is someone that is going to work to try to come up and listen to women. At the end of the day, Quintin, I'm a guy. I probably am not the best person to be coming up with all of these types of rules for women, which is why I supported us putting this on the ballot in a referendum for the women of the state of South Carolina.
State Representative Russell Ott, thank you for your time on Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much, Quintin. Always a pleasure.
Likewise.